we go.
Hi, I'm Amara. I am your youth at Yup, and I am doing this interview with Reverend Jonathan. Can you please start off with your name, pronouns, location, church of origin, and favorite treat?
Absolutely. I'm Jonathan. I have he, him pronouns. My location is Decatur, Georgia, on the coercively ceded land of the Muskogee Creek Nation, um, under the first Treaty of Indian Springs in 1821. Um, my home church is the Waterville Universalist Unitarian Church in Waterville, Maine. And my favorite treat is my wife's brown butter chocolate chip cookies.
That's a good option. I like whenever my mother makes something too. Just whoever's the baker in the house makes all the nice treats.
Oh man, it's such a fortunate circumstance.
Yeah, truly is. I'm Amara, she, they, it. And well, I also already asked the question. I just like whenever my mother bakes. Um, and how are we connected?
Let's see. I believe we've been to worship at the Abundant Love UU congregation together. And I have known your mom, Ayana, since I was the youth ministry, youth programs director at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Atlanta, starting in 2013. And I was the associate minister at UUCA as well. And yeah, and I know your grandparents pretty well also. Dr. Tony Stringer was on the committee that interviewed me for the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, and had the good fortune of working with him closely for a long stretch in my tenure at UUCA. And your grandmother Sakai was a volunteer in our RE program as well. So lots of connections, multi-generationally, and really glad to get a chance to talk with you this afternoon.
It's nice to be able to talk to you as well. What are you doing in your current UU life?
I'm the affiliated community minister for social justice at Abundant Love Unitarian.
You have you froze.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Okay, you froze. Can you repeat whatever you just said?
All
And
right.
keep
Yep. Sorry about that. I am the, hold on. I think there's something going on my end that I gotta untangle here. There we go. Sorry about that. That should be clearer now.
okay.
I am the affiliated community minister for social justice at Abundant Love Unitarian Universalist congregation in Atlanta's West End. An emerging UU congregation centered in the African American tradition. Our senior minister and founder is Reverend Duncan Teague, and I have the pleasure of worshiping there on a regular basis, being a guest preacher sometimes, helping out in worship, and connecting our congregation to the work of the community through my position as a faith outreach coordinator at Freedom University, a freedom school for undocumented students here in Atlanta, and as a board member for the New Sanctuary Movement of Atlanta, which is an immigration advocacy organization here in Atlanta.
Can you tell me more about your activism?
Absolutely. So a lot of it here in Atlanta has come in partnership with Freedom University. I got arrested in solidarity with the students there in 2017 and again in 2019, and I have been a volunteer driver there since 2019. Um, my activism is rooted in my UU principles that all humans have inherent worth and dignity, and that we engage in the aspiration of bringing uh, dignity to each and every human life through engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And so my activism is informed by that search for truth and meaning, and by continually digging down to root causes of the barriers that come up for me in that search um, for truth and that quest to make a world where everyone has lived dignity as opposed to stated and aspirational dignity. And right now, one of the major barriers to living out that aspiration is the existence of the prison industrial complex. And so working against the expansion of the prison industrial complex as an activist in the Stop Cop City movement, and we're going to make sure that the undocumented community in our state has trained and educated leaders as a contributor to Freedom University and their message to empower, or their mission of empowering students and educating them. And by and I'm continually kind of informed and inspired by the relationality of our UU faith. That is, I believe this work um, is done when we are in relationship with one another as activists and community members, and that this is inherently collective work, that there's no substantial contribution that any of us can make as individuals, but that indeed living out our principles and living out the work of the divine in this world is inherently collective work. And so to me, that means cultivating a connection to a UU congregation, being part of a UU congregation, building a community, faith community, spiritual community that way, and being accountable to a faith community that way, as I am through my covenant with abundant love, and weaving those connections and those relationships with community organizations, which for me are the ones that I stated here in Atlanta.
Very interesting. Must have sucked going to prison though. But well, what was your call to wait, what was your call to youth leadership story?
Well, somebody had to do it. Um, when I was in youth group in high school, we had just a really wonderful, close-knit group, but a small group. There was like a half dozen of us if everybody showed up on a given Sunday, and it usually wasn't everybody at one time. So, um, any sort of youth leadership that we were going to have in our congregation or in my district. Um, there was, it was more a matter of somebody stepping up than electing folks from like a pool of candidates. And so I was fortunate enough to have a few opportunities both within our congregation and with like youth conferences at the district level to get to be a part of those and take on um, roles as a representative within our congregation as youth leader and within the planning and execution of our youth conferences as a delegate from our Waterville UU congregation.
No, well, that sounds nice. It's nice that you got so many opportunities to do so.
Yeah, I was definitely fortunate in that way. And it was, a little bit resistant to it as a teenager. I kind of wanted to just do the fun parts, which to me were not so much the committee meetings and the planning and all that, but looking back, I certainly wouldn't change it. It was excellent preparation for future leadership, and it brought me closer to some really wonderful folks in my congregation and my district who, some of them I'm still in touch with and still very much remember the lessons of leadership that they taught me. So that was really worthwhile, even if I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Did you have any advisors or mentors that made an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. The minister of my home congregation, Reverend Severin Toll, um, helped me to declare that I was a conscientious objector uh, as a UU when I was in high school and when the Afghanistan and Iraq wars were starting. And Severin is someone who came to for advice periodically along my ministerial formation journey, and she spoke at my ordination, and just even in the last couple of years, I've called her, for example, when I was discerning my affiliation with Abundant Love and with UU the Vote back in 2020 when I was becoming a part of that. And she's just always been a really wise and knowledgeable presence for me in this process. And let me see. I remember we had a youth group advisor, Ruth Saint Amand from my home congregation, who uh, gave very generously of her time and of her emotional energy to helping us um, as a youth group, um, and is someone who I've kind of held in my head as a model, like when I do volunteer management, and when I think of like who is a good youth volunteer. I want to help to cultivate and promote in youth programs leadership that I've done in the past.
Well, that sounds like a really nice experience. What do you think your youth leader self would think of who you are now?
Um, I think myself as youth leader, I'd be really proud of where I've ended up today. Activism is a substantial and consistent part of my life, and that has been really non-trivial task to cultivate that situation for myself, taking a lot of work, and um, it was by no means predetermined or preordained that I was going to be able to say that at this point in my life, and I think my youth self would be really proud of that, and proud of the ways that I've helped other people's leadership to flourish. My role in most of the activist communities that I'm a part of now is to empower other leaders who are stepping up, embodying their vision for whether it's Freedom University, New Sanctuary Movement, Abundant Love. And I've really found that to be a successful and powerful niche for myself. So I don't know that I necessarily would have pictured myself as a step back and step up kind of leader when I was in high school. I thought I was going to be a presidential, high-ranking decision-making sort of leadership, and that definitely hasn't been the case. But I've come by it in a really authentic process, and I think that would have been really important to my high school self. And I'm committed. I've continued to be able to meet just the most spectacular leaders, both within our movement and within my community, who I've got to partner with. And that was always really important to me, was to find people who I thought were doing a great job and support their visions and their leadership. And that's certainly been the case for me now. That's something that I'm really proud of. And I think my youth self would mostly see that, and be a little confused and uncertain about it, but such is the nature of youth leadership.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm surely interested in what I'll think of myself in the future. What advice or guidance would you give to this generation of youth leaders, or just youth in general?
To always take your time when you're deciding what to commit yourself to, what to like pledge your time, your energy, and especially your spirit to. There's always more of a commitment that you end up making than you realize at the time. And so it's important to step back and ask yourself if that's really where you are spiritually in a given moment, and to drill down to your deepest values and principles and ask whether those are reflected in all the commitments that you're taking on. And even if you feel like something's not necessarily realistic, that to me, the realisticness of it is a less important question than whether it's something that you believe in and are committed to, and are going to be surrounded by people who you want to work with in. Because nothing seems realistic until you're actually in it and doing it. Um, and so take the time at each stage, whether it's youth leadership, young adult leadership, to really think through whether the commitments that you're making are in sympathy with the deepest spiritual principles that you hold, and whether they are working on those deepest issues that are the most substantial barriers to the world that you want to build. So I talked at the beginning about like how I find my activism is by paying attention to the barriers that keep coming up in the different goals that I have. And so step back and ask yourself, what are the barriers that keep coming up to the work that I want to do? And dig down to the root causes of those barriers, dig as deep as you can, surround yourself with people who you want to work with, and get to work on those causes, regardless of how realistic or difficult, regardless of how unrealistic or how difficult they seem, that's way less important than being surrounded by people who you want to work with and reflecting your deepest spiritual commitments in that work and drilling down as deep as you can to undo the barriers to liberation.
Hmm, that's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
and
my
for answering
pleasure.
all my questions. Um, it was great to have you here, and I hope you're having a lovely day.
Thank you so much. Great to get to talk with you. And if there's anything I can do to help in the future, please let me know. And I'm so grateful for your leadership in our UU movement.
Thank you.